what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It
Gets the people going.
Well, Hector, here's the game plan. You're gonna bring us 2 absolute martinis. You know how I like them, straight up. And then precisely 7½ minutes after that, you're gonna bring us 2 more. Then 2 more after that every 5 minutes until one of us passes the fuck out.
You got a bad attitude and you don't listen.
Oh, yes. There will be blood.
It is not the violence that sets man apart. All right, it is the distance that he is prepared to go.
Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while that you shouldn't have fucked with? That's me.
What the fuck else would you do this job? Cocaine and hookers, my friend.
Welcome to the Max Ordinate podcast. It's recording.
Oh, okay. Oh, let's
You're
see.
supposed to tap it?
I don't know, but let's see how the audio is on this.
Why do they tap it?
And to be honest, I have no idea.
I think it's evening. It's evening time, right?
It is.
If we were drinking in the morning, it'd be like,
Good evening.
what's up, Max Ordinate Nation? Excuse me, hairball. Dude, see, look at my fucking junk in this.
Well, you're the one that put it up higher, so it's looking straight down. I had it nice and low, so it was looking up.
Fucking.
I don't know.
Anyways,
Tyler's worried you're looking at his junk right now.
I am, dude. It's a weird thing. Now everybody's gonna be staring.
Not
at
everybody is. And I can hear my screaming baby in the background if you pause.
All right, so it's Thursday, right?
Yes,
Is that a child?
that's my screaming child.
That's your child.
Wonder if I should go check on it.
I mean, you got a wife, right?
Yeah, a pregnant wife.
Oh man, that baby is. Woo. So it's Thursday.
Yes, it's Thursday.
And it's been a long week. It's been a long day. So we're just gonna cover basically a few things. We're not gonna talk about the 10-year anniversary yet.
No, we're not.
Save that one for the very next episode that we're gonna do. But really quick, I had some questions after I made a post about the sniper modernization program.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a mouthful, modernization program, right? But I posted about it today because I was out there with a couple departments, and what we did is we pitched this program 2 years ago where we would run a department's monthly training cycle, right? So instead of them trying to figure out what to come up with or how to track their progress or any of that stuff, we do it all, right? So I was out there today, and I got Hemet and Marietta. We run their program. They actually opted for the every other month, right? They got other obligations. So every other month, Max Ordinate comes in, and we have been running their program for over a year now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's been a good time, right? We track all of the paper targets that we have them execute drills on. All of it gets recorded. It gets saved on a cloud or wherever we put these things, right?
It's not an actual cloud.
I know, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes, I did.
So we save all their targets, right? We go through, the schedules are recorded, what actually happened, their round counts, everything is detailed. We have a maintenance program. So in the event that an officer, goes to court or he's, being tried for a bad shooting, whatever it is, we have all this data to back up of how well he shoots, how his gun performs, any issues that have come up. We write recommendations on like this gun is not performing to the standards, shit like that. So it's a really awesome program, and it's fairly inexpensive, especially if you have a department that is, 5, 6, 10 guys, where sending each one of those to one training per month could cost you, $500, $600, $700. So our program is in the ballpark of $1,000, right? A little more than $1,000 a month or per training session. And we come to you, or you can come to us. It doesn't matter. And we get after it. So today was that day. It was a good time. We started with a deployment drill.
Mhm.
So we had some traffic issues, so we all showed up late, and it kind of foiled my plan because I was going to blockade the entrance to the range and make them pull up to my truck, get out and deploy and go find their target. Right. It didn't work out that way, but we still accomplished what we were looking for, which was get these guys in a certain area. They don't know where the targets are. And then I've labeled all the targets with numbers, but then I hung the targets up to little paper faces.
Mhm.
I hung them up in the weirdest fucking order you could think of, right? I don't want them to be like, oh, I'm number 3. They see number 1 and they just
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So random order, give them each a number, and they have 2.5 minutes to move up into their position, find the target from behind a barricade, and then establish a position to take a shot, and boom, 2.5 minutes, right? 100% across the board except for 1 and 95, right? And that just means he didn't shoot the little triangle in the eye and nose box. He just slightly outside.
Yeah.
No big deal, right? Good time. Then we move into just fundamental practice, got into some tripod stuff, just grouping exercises, barricades. And overall, I mean, we did a lot. We talked about habits, getting into the mindset of like, once I'm in position, maybe I haven't taken the shot yet. Maybe there's not a shot to take. Maybe it's just there's a suspect and he hasn't done anything to, raid a gravesite yet. So talking about different things, and we got into the mover conversation. So we're talking about movers, and I'm like, all right, so you got a suspect, he's inside the house, or he's here, and there's potential that he may run, right? Now you got a sprinter. So in your mind, your mental preparation, what's your lead going to be? And it was just like crickets. And I'm like, okay, so let's talk about it, right? I'm like, so, we shoot minutes or mils? Everybody's shooting minutes. All right, cool. Well, what's your walking? And they're like, I don't have my chart. I'm like, your chart? What fucking chart? Real snipers don't use charts.
We just went over this.
Come on, man. Right. So we go through the mover formula. We actually used geoballistics just to prove that the math was solid, and, break it down. Like a person walking is 3 miles an hour, person jogging 6, running's 9, sprinting's 12. Unless he's a crackhead, he could be, pushing the upper limits of 15, 20, right? It depends on the level of crack that he has ingested.
Yeah.
So we talk about the different speeds and how it's just like, okay, walking is 1.8, jogging is 3.6, right? Or minutes, it actually worked out super easy, right? You're a minutes guy.
I'm both, but yes, I'm a minutes guy.
So walking, 6 MOA.
Mhm.
Jogging, 12. Running, 18.
Pretty easy.
I mean, you just 6 every time.
Stack 6 to it every time.
That's it, right? I was like, okay, so now we've reduced our numbers that we have to memorize from all of this chart bullshit, because they had like 25, 50 yards, 100 yards, right? And lead edge, which is killing me with this lead edge shit, because it just,
I know. And so
it doesn't make sense.
So from a law enforcement perspective, historically, we didn't train movers really, because it's one of those, it's department specific, like what city you're working in, what your rules of engagement are. Because for me, there was never any real scenario that spending time shooting movers made sense, right? He's running. Well, I can't shoot him. He's usually running away.
I guess it depends on where he's running, though.
Well,
right?
that's exactly it, right? Is he imminent threat? So,
are you in a dense urban environment, or are there bystanders around? Then absolutely, you don't want to take that shot.
For sure. I get it.
But if there's no potential danger around him, but he's running towards, imminent threat or whatnot, then
no, for sure. It's just, again, it's one of those. My point is that's sort of why there's crickets when the conversation comes up, because not a lot of agencies train it.
Yeah.
And it's something that, again, it's another training point that should be trained more, that nobody does. So it's just almost unheard of.
When I asked the question, I'm like, all right, Matt, guy comes out of his house and he's a threat, right? It's already been established that he is a hostile threat.
Mm-hmm.
Comes out of his house and he beelines it towards the alleyway. What's your lead? I was like, and he is full on sprinting. He's like, lead edge. I'm like, oh my God.
God.
Okay. So I like start breaking down the math. I'm like, okay,
How far away is he?
I was like, based off the scenario we just ran, we're at 100, right? We're at 100. He takes off a dead sprint. You're going to hold lead edge. He's like, yeah, it should work. I'm like, all right, let's think about this here for a second. He's sprinting. So you're going to need 24 minutes of angle to lead this guy, right? Now the target is at 100. The suspect is at 100. He from chest to back, right? I was like, we're not shooting sideways runners.
Yeah,
we're shooting
chest to back,
shooting regular running people. So from chest to back, he's about 12 inches thick. I'm like, that's 12 MOA. You
Maybe.
hold lead edge. Where's your bullet going to be? He's like
12 inches behind him.
Behind him. I was like, a whole fucking body behind him, right? Because you needed 24, you only gave it 6, you know? And he's like, oh, fuck. I'm like, so leads matter, you know, like this lead edge shit. I don't know where it came from. And I think it's from what you're talking about, where it's kind of like this untrained skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you hear about, well, you got to lead in front of the target. You do, but the amount of speed that person has is going to dictate how far you have to lead.
For sure.
Right. So good conversation.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I brought this up before, I think the biggest value in, you know, us pretty much, you know, the law enforcement program isn't even, the training obviously matters. The training is important.
Yeah.
And the training is the number one most important of the whole program. But the way I look at it as someone who was in charge of training and records for so long for a department, just keeping track of records, keeping track of training, keeping track of cold bore shots at the first range day of the month, like that's the shit that matters.
Yeah.
And not having to worry about that, and not having to worry about storage and how you access it when it's subpoenaed to court. I mean, just that kind of shit is priceless.
That stuff is
And we don't charge enough.
We don't charge enough, right? You know, but when you think about the weapons side of it,
yeah. Which is a whole nother.
I get that, you know, departments have armors and stuff like that. But when we're talking about like, hey, we got a weapons program where we are tracking your rifle, we're tracking your chamber length, your throat erosion, like we're tracking all that shit, you know, like, so these are important things. And if you're not in the program, then your department should be doing this for you. And, you know, those are vital things. And it's not just about saving your own ass when it comes to court. That's a big part of it, right? Things happen, situations get crazy, and at the end of the day, you want to be able to defend yourself. I get that, right? I don't think there's, you know, I would say 99% of the cops out there are doing the right thing, you know? And if there's a mistake, it was truly a mistake. With that being said, the other half of that coin is none of these guys want to fuck up and shoot an innocent person.
Oh, for sure.
You know, so like that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. So here's an example would be, it's a good shoot. You end up in federal court because you're getting sued regardless.
Yeah.
They're going to try to prosecute you. It's proven it's a good shoot. It's proven that you had every reason to pull the trigger, and no one's questioning that.
Yep. However,
your training records don't match up.
They are still going to nitpick through every little 100%. Detail.
So you shot the suspect. However, you know, how can we prove that you shot where you aimed? Because your training records show that your cold bore shot at every goddamn
right
at every range session shows that you're always 2 inches high and to the left, and it's never corrected. And I see that there's corrections, but it doesn't show that how many clicks on your turrets you corrected to get back there. Like, your training records are garbage.
Yeah.
So we're going to figure out a way to prosecute. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
That exact scenario, I've seen it.
Yeah.
So
it's a sad reality.
And then you know who ends up in court? We do now.
Yeah.
Instead of that department's armor / weapons range master / whatever. Now it's us to articulate the training and records. So taking that off of a department is huge.
Yeah. So after we finished up some of the tripod stuff, the barricade paper drills, right? We moved into, it was supposed to be a mag change race, right? But it it was a race. Don't get me wrong there. We still raced each other, but it also turned into a let's test your SOPs, right? Because I make these guys do everything from their standard operating procedures. So if they're going to pull their rifle out of their car and their magnification is supposed to be on 3, well, fuck, that's where it's going to be, right? The other thing is like, okay, you're on a call. We're about to do a mag change drill. Where's your magazine? Where is that spare magazine if you got to do a mag change?
It's in the side pocket of my drag bag.
Okay. So check this out. We got one guy who's like, it's in my cargo pocket. I'm like, all right.
All right, cool.
Another guy, he's like, it's in my cargo pocket. It's like, okay. Another guy, he's like, it's in my drag bag. I'm like, okay. And another guy is like, I forget where he had his, right? So we go through the races and like, you know, I think one guy made it almost all the way through, and then he was trying to get slick with it. And this is kind of like where the SOP testing comes in. He's like, do I have to mag change? I'm like, do you have another option? Your rifle went dry. He's like, I don't know. I was like, you have the sleeve right here. There's bullets in there. I was in there. Why aren't you using it? He's like, can I? I was like, yes, it's a reload, right? You're combat loading. Your mag went dry. You're top loading now. He's like, oh, fuck.
But are those his rounds?
Yes.
I mean, so typically, and things may have changed, but typically mine here or here are bonded for windows.
These are not bonded.
Okay.
These are spare.
Those are just spares.
Yeah, just
Okay.
spares, right? So, you know, now he's like, okay, I could fucking top load. I'm like, yeah,
do whatever the fuck you got to do.
all right. So
Game it. Who cares?
first go at it, right? He ended up putting a mag in with more rounds than what I told him. So he boom takes his shot, pulls a bolt back, grabs a round, throws
Sticks
it
on top of another one.
double feeds, and like loses royally, right? Now, fast forward, he did end up just getting so good at like doing it that like he's like, that's how I want my SOP to be. I'm like, that's good, right? But you have to practice that way.
For sure, right? And again, this goes back to being able to do it both ways, right? Being able to train and practice for every scenario, because again, you're gonna fall back to it. Because the scenario where he's in as a law enforcement sniper, that you're fucking running out of rounds. I mean, like,
it's
can happen.
unrealistic, but it could happen.
It could, but it's the same thing that I tell anybody who asks me why I carry more than one mag on my concealed carry every day. It's not for the extra rounds.
Yeah,
it's because most failures of weapons are usually magazine related.
Could be.
And I need to get rid of that one and get the new one.
Yeah.
So being able to throw mags out and do mag change as fast as.
So the things that changed, right? We have homeboy who's like, fucking, I'm going to my spare rounds. Like, that's my go-to. All right, cool.
Good for him.
The guy with the drag bag. I'm like, all right, gentlemen, get up out of the prone, get on those tripods. And he's like, but my mag's down there. I'm like, yeah, it is. You said that's where you put it. He's like, I do. I'm like, well, he's like, maybe I'll put it in my cargo pocket. So he like grabs it and he's like, no, I'm going to put it in my front pocket. I'm like, why not put it on the left side? Because you're a right-handed shooter. And he's like, that's a good idea. And he's like, I have a mag pouch. I'm like, maybe that would be a good idea. Maybe that should be part of your standard operating procedures right there. Yeah. So by the end of it, dude, we had 2 guys pull out their fucking mag pouch gun belts and like put them on, like, oh fuck, like,
yeah, I need to work from here. I need a tool belt.
I need to do this. Yeah, it's like I don't want to lose anymore. I was like, okay, well, like when you're on a call, it should be the same thing. Like, this is how you should be training, you know, like, so it was, we're going to practice mag changes and getting the gun back up and taking your second shot, and we're going to race each other. And then it also developed into, what are your SOPs, and let's see how well they work for you, you know? And, you know, I like how it finished, you know, because it showed big holes in how they do things.
It always makes me feel good training with those guys, because, you know, it's not only just the holes that we find, but it's the ahas that they figure out and the changes that they make, that our program changes a department, which I think is such a cool feeling.
Yeah.
And it's something that not a lot of people get to do.
Yeah. So, you know, when we first showed up, I was asking them questions like, what are our SOPs? Like, talk to me about things that are standard, you know? And then we talked about habits and like getting into a position and like how, you know, like, are you taking your drag bag from the car with you? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, cool. So when you get to your position, what is your method of operating? And it was kind of like, well, I'm going to find the target and then I'm going to do this. And I'm like, whatever it is that you do, it has to be done the same time every time.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Well, because if you've built successful habits, then your mind can focus on what the suspect's doing or what's happening down there while your body is getting all of your shit ready, So we spent a lot of time talking about habits that matter and then reinforcing them. It's like, okay, hey, we're going to shoot this target. And I see a dude jump on his gun and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm looking for the target. I was like, but that's not what you told me your SOP is. You told me your SOP is range the target, put my dope on, set my generic parallax, and then build my position. So if that's what your SOP is going to be, then practice that way, So we spent a lot of time reinforcing those things. We did shoot some distance, and I was picking some small ass targets. We talked about the wind formula, especially using minutes of angle. Like a lot of people in the industry just don't know what the MOA formula is for wind, right?
Yeah.
It's just as simple as mils. It's just a different, it's a different way of doing it. So once they got it down, dude, it was money.
Let me ask, because this doesn't get covered a lot, but it's something that I used to harp on the guys a lot, which is, do you have an SOP for just where you put your shit when you deploy? And once you're there and once you're deployed, because one of the biggest things I see is clutter. I see a lot of guys get out and it's clutter and it's behind the rifle and it's like, where's my extra mag? Where's my rangefinder? Where's all my shit?
Yeah.
And it's the looking around for your gear. So we always had, put an SOP, which is your shit, wherever your shit goes, that's where it goes.
Yeah.
Period. So wherever your stuff is, so you don't have to think about needing to get to it. I see guys, not necessarily new shooters, but departments that don't have that in their SOPs.
Yeah.
And it's like a fucking yard sale around them all the time.
So I see the same thing. One, I think any gear that is going to be potentially used or shared by somebody else should be labeled.
100%.
Like if it's a 2-man team and there's only one rangefinder, then there should be a fucking pouch that says rangefinder, right? Just like med kits. Like med kits should, and this is the one piece of gear I feel like it should either be blatantly labeled or we should, if we're in a team, we should all be carrying it in the same spot.
Yeah.
So we all know where the fuck our shit's at,
Yep.
If we got to help our buddy. But one side of it is like, there's no consistency to how guys are packing their shit. But then there's guys who say, I want to pack it this way, and this makes sense to me. But then they don't train with it enough to remember what fucking pouch is what.
Exactly.
Like this tan
got tons
pouch
of cool pouches.
looks like that tan pouch. So you're like, where's my fucking pen at? It's like fucking 10 pouches later, So it's not good enough to just organize your stuff in a make sense type of way. But then you got to practice with it to the point where like, where your shit is, and that's the big thing. So yeah, there's definitely some necessity for gear organization. There was a good one where we're talking about like, okay, you get up to your position. This was on their deployment drill. You get up to their position, open their bag, pull the rifle out, and now they get their rifle up and they're looking for the target, right? Maybe they don't have binos, they don't have the gear, whatever it is. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, you just set up in a position and it doesn't work for you, right? This position right here isn't going to suit what you need to accomplish. So now what's going to happen? And they're like, well, we got to move. I was like, yeah, with this fire sale that you have right here, you got to move, right? Maybe look downrange first and assess the situation and say, this position's good or it's not good.
Before I dump all my shit.
Before I get all my shit out, right? So, there was a lot of good points today and it was an excellent training day. I enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. We got a lot out of it, man. We were there from 8 a.m. to basically 3 p.m.
So tell
lunch.
Tell everybody a little bit more about the weapons portion of it, because it's something that I've never seen and something I would have loved to have back when I was in charge of shit, which is someone else to either buy rifles from, standardize rifles from, do checks on rifles, headspace, throat wear, erosion, like that's all part of the program.
Yeah.
And it's tracked every single class or every single time? And is it only on the rifles that we do?
So for the actual maintenance part of it, right? We'll go as far as long as they want it, if they have a specific way that they want to go about their business, we're not going to fight it, but once a quarter. So every 3 months, we'll scrub the rifle, right? Rip all the copper out, like clean that baby up, measure the chamber, make sure there's no carbon rings, like completely clean barrel. And we're looking at what's the throat erosion, what's our round count, and if we don't meet with them, like say Marietta, right? We do every other month. Then it's on them for that 1 month that they didn't shoot with us to make sure they let us know, like, this is the round count that I had, because we are still tracking it. We're just not physically there to do it, right? But every training session, what's your round count? This gun, this serial number, this is the life of the barrel. This is how many rounds we have through it. This is the group size, right? And what we try to do is compare the group size among 3 shooters. So we'll have one paper, it's got the first shooter, the second shooter, the third shooter. And we're like, all right, this is the average group size amongst these 3 shooters with this ammo, right? Tracking lot numbers, things like that. And just basic maintenance stuff. A part of that comes into the scope operation. So running an actual tracking drill, once a quarter, making sure the scope still functions. Why are we doing all this? Well, a lot of when you think about liability, not only is the shooter a part of the equation, but all of his gear adds to this liability, right? So if this preventative maintenance, if this scope operations check, if all of this stuff can be looked at every quarter and say, we've done as much as we can to prevent any incidents, right? Then ultimately, I feel like it puts everybody in a better position.
No, for sure.
Whereas, the gun doesn't get checked by the armorer for a fucking 1.5 years. It's just been shot. He cleaned it a little bit, shot, cleaned it a little bit. He has no idea what the round count is. He has no idea if the headspace is working the right way. He has no idea what the throat erosion is. And then, one day the scope fails on a call and now we have an incident.
Yeah.
Right. So some of these things you can look at and say, what's the best way for us to prevent as much as possible? And you even with all of that, you still ain't going to prevent everything.
No, for sure.
So
I just really like that portion. I think it's a pretty cool, not only idea, but I think it's even in practice, I think it's pretty bitchin'.
Yeah.
It adds a lot of value.
Talking to these guys today, and it's coming up towards the end of the fiscal year for cops, and they're like, we got a little bit of money to spend. Thinking about buying, Anvil 30 heads for our slick 700 tripods. And I'm like, dudes, come on.
Please don't.
I'm like, trust me, I love the Really Right Stuff head, but you got to upgrade those tripods, right? Like, you guys all had these tripods from like 8 years ago, the first time you ever met me and you came to my course. We've grown from there. Better equipment is available. I'm like, so if you've got, $2,000 to $3,000 to spend, then go take a look at 2Vets tripods. Pick up some of those tripods, set yourself up with a better tripod, which ultimately will also, in my opinion, reduce liability.
Yeah,
right?
And I think that's a critical portion, which is, you touched on something earlier, which is, we'll track one rifle between, say, 3 shooters.
Yeah.
And in my departments, it's always been one rifle, one shooter, but you forget some of these other departments share rifles. Well, they share rifles, they should share tripods too. Instead of getting 5 guys, $100 tripods and heads, just buy one good setup per rifle.
Yeah.
That would save a ton of money. And then you eliminate all the problems. Like, not everybody can deploy all at the same time.
I mean, I guess it just
you really deploy as many rifles as you got.
It depends, right?
Yeah.
But like, if you're making the argument of, hey, we need these tripods, and your department's like, oh, but they're so expensive. It's like, well, it's $500 now or $10 million later.
Exactly.
Where do we want to go with this?
No,
and
sure.
So it's just taking another step out of the equation and saying we could be better here. So talk to them about tripods and, upgrading some of their stuff, looking at their rifles. Man, we had basically everybody. It's like, okay, I want you to lay down, you're going to shoot a group, and I want you to tell me after every shot where your recoil went, right? So we had to make some adjustments. We had one guy, buttstock way too low. So brought him up, moved his scope. We fixed everybody's rifle position. Everybody's good to go, right? One rifle, like one of the original AIs, 20-inch barrel, no muzzle brake. Was there a muzzle brake?
No, I don't think there's. I've seen that rifle.
So he shoots and he's like, Tyler, I just cannot get this motherfucker to, stay inside that recoil bubble that you're talking about. I'm like, okay, where's it going? He's like, 30 minutes left. I'm like, damn, okay. So we try to make some adjustments, pull his shoulders, move his hips, do different things, right? And I think the best we got it to was like 10 minutes. And I'm like, let me shoot. I want to see what you're feeling so I have a better understanding. So I like get behind his rifle and shoot, boom, sure enough, boom, fucking 30 minutes left. I'm like, God. So I make my own adjustments. I change my position a little bit and I shoot. And now I'm able to keep it within 5, right? But the problem is like, I couldn't get it to be consistent. I mean, this little rifle just hammered your body. And I'm like, there's a lot going on here. It's a really lightweight rifle.
Yeah.
And it is a mule. It's a mule. It's kicking this shit.
It comes from the early days.
Everybody that shoots it.
Of these ultralight sniper rifles that they're so worried about weight. The guys that are carrying them on roofs, they think the first thing is, well, I need to just have a carbon fiber fucking stock and I got to have it super lightweight, shooting a 308, and they just fucking beat your ass.
So the thing that was bugging me, right? And what you got to understand is like energy, right? Rifle is recoiling, you got energy, and it's going to move in the path of least resistance. So the placement in the collarbone, how it connects to your body, all that stuff matters. But also the pressures you apply, like when you're squeezing your rear bag and your buttstock together, are you applying thumb pressure, shit like that? Well, what I noticed is like, I'm in my position and I'm trying to get his rifle to cooperate with me, and boom, I'd shoot 1 second, I'd have good, like I'm close. Boom, next shot, 30 minutes left. What the fuck? I can't figure this out. It's bugging me. And I started to notice like, man, why's my jaw hurt? So the old AI's got that big ass fat buttstock with that big old chi piece, right? So like your head's got to be tilted to the side to look through this. Well, as I'm behind the rifle, I noticed that my head's down and I'm also pushing the rifle. My groups are solid, but my face is causing the rifle to want to move to the right. So I took the cheek piece completely out and I was able to get it to where shot after shot, I didn't have that 30-minute jump to the left. And all it was cheek pressure, right? And it was like the stock is not cooperating with the shooter. I'm like, all right. So moral of the story is you got to get rid of this fucking buttstock. It's got to go somewhere. You got to get rid of it, right? Cut it off. You'd be better with like a broomstick on the end, maybe a blunted one. But man, that rifle just drove me nuts for probably 30 minutes. It was not a fun time.
Yeah. Well, I'm bummed I missed this month's class. I went to the last one. They're always bitching. It's always nice to see the changes, the progression of them as shooters, as well as, snipers. So it's a cool class. I'm bummed I missed it, but
yeah,
I had
a good time. Stuff going on, babies, baby mamas.
Babies eating dinner right now. I got to go help. Dodge
trucks that aren't fucking starting. I mean, there's stuff
lots going on.
But you know what? It's all good. We got it done. And the next one will be in August. And
awesome.
We'll whip it on again, man. So anyway, we'll be back. We'll kick out another episode, talk about our 10-year anniversary, some things coming up.
And we're going to do a gear one?
We are going to do a gear one.
We will fit in a gear one at some point.
Yeah. We got to talk about gear, some things that you would like to have, and then some things that are like a must-have. All right. And kind of whip that on. But until then, we'll be back. Talk to you later. Appreciate you guys listening, and we are out of here.